Since we've talked about so many of the great things that are coming in Total War, Warhammer 2, the Queen and the Crone DLC, we've talked about Lithanaar, we've talked about Alariel, we've talked about Halabron. We've even talked about the Dwarf Runic Forge and some of the mechanics that are coming with that. What we haven't talked about, what a lot of you guys have requested, is actually the Skaven food mechanic and how that's kind of changed. In the past, and the way that the food mechanic kind of was, is that in the later game, or at least the mid to late game, it was very challenging to get a lot of food, especially if you were Clan Rictus. This is my Clan Pestilence playthrough, and this is only turn 90 or so. But if you're up here, Clan Rictus, it's very challenging to get a lot of food, and that can cause a lot of creep, especially in Mortal Empires. I mean, in Vortex Empire, in the Vortex campaign, it's not as big of a problem, but in Mortal Empires, it becomes a big problem very fast. If you guys remember the Tretch Craven Tail / Kotep playthrough that Turn and I were doing, our head-to-head campaign, it was really suffering from a bog down and from, well, aside from the fact that Kotep's just kind of in the ass middle of nowhere, but it was suffering from a lot of food issues on Turn's part. And it was really only turn 30 or 40 into the campaign before we kind of said, hey, let's table this until they fix the food mechanic. And this is something that people have had an outcry for on the Reddit and everything like that. So let's go into what has changed with that food mechanic. We'll go to building browser here. And not a ton has changed from the building standpoint. Where is it? Yes, the breeding pit. Oh, not the breeding pit. Where is it? Where is it? There is one building here that really kind of helps out with food, and I can't remember where it's at. Because aside from these, obviously helping with your food capacity, the biggest thing is really in research, and we'll get to that in a second here, but I could have swore that there was buildings that help with food production. I thought it was breeding pit. That's clearly only growth. Ah, here it is. That's right. So the warp lighting capacitors on the top two, they help out with food generation. And I can't remember if that was there to begin with or not, but there are more ways to get access to food that are outside of just simply raiding and pillaging, which is, very Skaven-y, so it's very important that we get that. But if we take a look at the Gracier of Ruin, there are no skills added that assist with food. So, important to note. Same thing goes with just the generic Warlord. No skills really that are added that help out with the production of food. And I'm just showing you guys this so that you guys don't say, well, hey, was there anything added skill-wise? No, unfortunately not. Not that I could see, as I check again really quick, on these characters. Now, if I look at Lord Skrulk, he's right here, yeah. He and of himself, again, nothing really pertaining to food. Corruption, loot, but nothing for food. Where the real benefit comes in here, you can see him surrounded by the Order of the Lore Masters here because they just confederated over there with Citadel of Dusk, is you've got help from rights. The dominating scheme generates 3 food per turn. That's a huge bonus as is. But the biggest thing here is in your technologies. So the technologies are going to be something that we're all very familiar with. How do I get all this? Do I want devious plans, ferocious plans? It kind of gives you a way to build your Skaven army in a way that fits your playstyle, as always. Now, if we look at, I think it's just the plans. So monstrous plans. Research the following item to advance the Skaven's vicious, uncompromising agenda to another level altogether. Now, this increases your food capacity and your food generated. Now, that's pretty great. Now, let's jump on over here to virulent plans. Boom. 30 and 2. So these are your first real entries into the increase in both your food cap and your food generation. And that's huge because depending on, again, how you want to play, you see that I'm right by virulent plans. I'm also very, very, very close to monstrous plans. And previously, I was having quite a bit of an issue, minus 12 a turn, which is not good. I have a surplus of food because I was on a rampage lately, but that's kind of how it always is for the Skaven. Are you rampagingly expanding to the point where that you're getting enough food that you can maintain, or is food going to start crippling you and your economy? So let's take a look here further down the line. It's pretty much anytime you see these plans that are gated, usually by some sort of situation. So oppressive plans here, again, 30 capacity and 2 food generation. This volatile plans will give us 30 capacity and 2 food generation as well. Now, I would have liked to have seen, maybe rather than capacity, a smaller capacity and a higher food generation, because maybe the capacity doesn't scare me as much as the actual income of food. You can produce buildings, obviously, that give you that food income, and that's great and all. But you are going to want that food generation to be a little bit higher. Maybe capacity being 30 is okay, but in my mind, I want this tier to say food generated 4 or 5 or 6. Because we jump over to our next tier, ingenious plans. Again, this is, I mean, if I click this button, it's going to take me 18 turns to get there. This one, well, I can't really click that button. God damn it, I'm gated by all these buildings. But I mean, it's going to take me a significant amount of turns. That's 39 turns to get to this one. And however many turns that takes to build that is going to take to build that. So it's going to take me a long time to get to this. And for a measly 30 capacity and 2 food generation, which was the beginning of these ones as well, sure, these bonuses stack. So if I get all these plans, you know, I'll be looking at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 food generated a turn, which is very significant. But it does require you to build the entire technology tree, which is not usually ideal. You want to kind of typically focus one over the other. As you can see, I have not done that. But the big thing here is if I just did one line, 2, 4, 6, yeah, that kind of blows. But you do get other bonuses throughout the game from stuff that gives you food generation. But these are the only 2 big ones that I have seen for food generation in the Skaven campaign. In addition, you get it from, like, say, the exotic animal market now generates food, which I think is a pretty fun little, like, tongue-in-cheek way of saying, like, we're going to eat the exotic animals because we're Skaven. But you don't, obviously, you're not going to get it from, say, a gold smelter. But I do think that this, in my playing of this, I think that it has very much helped out the food situation with the Skaven. Like, I think that I could totally play it with my turn campaign, or my campaign with my head-to-head campaign with turn, and be totally fine about it actually kind of coming to fruition and completing, and not just being shortchanged by the lack of food mechanic. So, what I would have liked to have seen, though, to be totally honest, is maybe like a food mechanic that's a little bit more dynamic, and maybe has some sort of attrition attached to it. Like, maybe surpluses actually have a lot of bonuses, but they also will negate food over time. Like, say, like this in and of itself, maybe it has an increased plentiful food bonus, but at the same time it has a -2 to food, because yeah, sure, you've got a ton of food, but food spoils, it does go bad. It kind of prevents you from being a Skaven, and a turtling one at that, because it's not necessarily the Skaven-y way, right? The Skaven-y way is to kind of constantly be expanding upward, northward, eastward, southward, all the ways, increasing the Under Empire here. So I would have liked to have seen more ways to get food, but to have more food actually causes a negative generation of food. I think that'd be kind of a really cool way to be thematic to the fact that, again, food spoils. I could stay, I mean, your consumption does kind of play into that, but, you know, my settlement upkeep and my army upkeep, that causes what you could essentially assume is some form of penalty to food. But I would have really enjoyed something that made it so that you kind of, it forces you to keep expanding, because I could make this to a point where it just kind of bottoms out and be 0, and that's okay, I guess. But it even shows us here, food is gained from fighting battles and be grown by special buildings in settlements with the pastures resource, which is, I've got one around here somewhere. Right here. Oh, they took it, those bastard asses. But this, the pastures, again, does produce food as well for you. Oh, here it is. I knew I had another pasture somewhere. There it is. Black corn swamp. But this has always been in the game. This is not something new here, but this is just another way to get food generated strictly from a resource building into the game. A unique resource, like, again, the pastures, which usually gives like healing herbs for the lizard man, or different things for different races. So it all just kind of depends. But Again, I just wanted to kind of go over the food mechanic here and the changes, and so that you guys can see everything. A lot of people were asking me about this in some of the streams. If there's anything else you want to see from this DLC before it comes out here on Thursday, Friday, do let me know, guys. I'm more than happy to provide you guys with any kind of information I can, any videos on any kind of subject matter you guys really want to see the most. That's what spawned the Dwarf Runic Forge video, so I'm more than happy to spread the rest of the goodies, guys. But as always, thanks for watching here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, all that action. Have a good one, and take care.